In today's video, I'll be taking a look at the B450 Aorus M from Gigabyte. First, I'll be giving a quick overview of the board, and then I'll be going over my testing and results. The Aorus M is a Micro-ATX motherboard on the AM4 platform. It supports 1st gen, 2nd gen, and 3rd gen Ryzen processors. The VRM is a 3+2 power phase. There are 4 DIMM sockets with support for up to 64 gigs of system memory. The motherboard has 3 fan headers, 2 labeled as system fan headers and 1 labeled as a CPU fan header. There are 2 3-pin 5-volt ARGB headers and 1 4-pin 12-volt CPU RGB header. In the bottom corner, there is Gigabyte's version of Easy Debug for fast boot error diagnosis. The rear I/O consists of 1 PS2 port, 2 USB 2.0 ports, 4 USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports, 2 USB 3.1 Gen 2 ports, has Realtek Gigabit LAN, and onboard high-definition Realtek audio. There is also an HDMI and a DVI port for those looking to go with an APU. There is 1 PCIe Gen 3 x 16 slot and 1 PCIe 2.0 x 1 slot, and 1 PCIe 2.0 x 16 slot that is running at ×4. And for storage, there is 1 M.2 connector and 6 SATA 6 gigabit connectors. The Gigabit B450 Aorus M retails for around $85 US. Now for the testing, I tested both the Ryzen 5 2600 and the Ryzen 5 3600. I started by finding stable overclocks for the CPU. Once I found a stable CPU overclock, I started overclocking the system memory using the XMP profile. I used 3 different kits of RAM. I used 2 sticks of Corsair Vengeance LPX 3600 with the timings of 18, 22, 22, 42. I used 2 sticks of G.Skill Aegis 3000 with the timings of 16, 18, 18, 38. And I used 4 sticks of G.Skill Aegis 3000 with the timings of 16, 18, 18, 38. If the rated speed proved to be unstable, I reduced the memory frequency while keeping the timings the same. Then I took temperature readings of the CPU using Hardware Monitor, and I used my digital thermometer to take temperature readings of the VRMs and the room temperature. For the VRMs, I took the readings from the top of the Mosfets and from the top of the chokes. The rest of the hardware used in this testing, I used the Fractal Design Celsius S24 running at full speed for the CPU cooler. I used the Zotac GTX 1070 Mini for the GPU. For the power supply, I used the EVGA 650GQ. The OS drive was a 250 gig Western Digital Blue SATA 3 M.2 SSD, and all the tests were performed on an open air test bench. Now before moving on, if you like what I'm doing here, could you please subscribe to the channel and like the video? It helps a lot. All testing was done on the most recent BIOS at time of filming, which is the F50. Okay, starting with the voltages, this is a little harder to compare to the other motherboards because the Aorus M uses only an offset. So I took the readings of the V-core from Hardware Monitor to then give the basic idea of what the voltage is. Now in the BIOS, I had the offset set to a plus 0.216, which gave me an approximate 1.32 volts. I was able to keep 4.1 gigahertz stable at that voltage, which is actually a little bit below the rest of these motherboards. The memory testing of the Aorus M with the Corsair 3600 kit, I was only able to manage a stable frequency at 3466. That's with the timings of 18, 22, 22, 42. With the 4DIMM kit of the G.Skill, I was only able to get a 2666 stable with the timings of 16, 18, 18, 38. The CPU temperatures at load were on the higher end of all the motherboards I have tested, but the Mosfets and Chokes were actually pretty much right in the middle, performing much better than the B450 M Pro 4. Now for the Ryzen 5 3600, in Hardware Monitor I took a reading of 1.24 volts to get a stable overclock of 4.2 gigahertz. Now again, in the BIOS I had it set to a plus 0.156 offset. And again, the memory overclocking didn't seem to be quite as strong as some of the other boards. The Corsair Vengeance kit was able to run stable at 3600 megahertz, but the 4DIMM kit was only able to reach a 2866. For the 3600, the CPU temperatures seem to be pretty much all the same, with very little difference, all within the margin of error. Now for the Mosfets and Chokes, everything again seemed to be pretty much right in the middle, substantially better than the ASRock B450 M Pro 4, but not quite as good as the killer SLI. Now overall, the motherboard did do fairly well. I don't know how much I would really recommend this board. And again, just looking at the numbers relative to the other boards should give you a pretty good understanding of where this board should stack up. Again, if it's the cheapest board in your area, it might work well enough. And it really does come down to how much you're paying for the motherboard relative to what else you can maybe get for the same price. And that's all I got for this one. All the normal stuff. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Click the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified whenever I drop a new video. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.